Hello everybody. I have a guitar today. Last week Scott and I, Scott the drummer, and I on Saturday went to Sweetwater down in Indiana for his birthday. Went and bought him a fancy cymbal. He's 40, so now he gets a cymbal, make lots and lots of noise. It's wonderful. And also I went down there so I could buy the Iridium pedal. For anybody who doesn't know what the Iridium pedal is, which is probably most people, it's an amp simulator pedal. There's lots of videos online if you want to see exactly what the Iridium is and what it does and what an amp simulator pedal is. I'm going to just talk about what I'm going to use it for, go through a couple of quick examples. The Iridium is an amp simulator pedal. Basically, it's got 3 different amp settings on it. It's right down there, so I'm looking at. Round, chime, and punch. Round is basically a Fender, chime's an AC30 Vox, and punch is going to be your Marshall Plexi Super Lead. Now, I got this because I want the sound of a Vox, I want the sound of a Marshall. Like I have the round down here, which is the Fender, which it sounds great, but I'm not going to use it much because I have a Princeton. Like, this is what the pedal's trying to be, and I have a real one, so I'll just mic that up. But I do want the sounds of the Vox, and I do want the sounds of the Marshall sound on there. I also got it because when I record guitars, it's going to be about a month and a half of very loud guitars. And with this, it's going to be a lot less loud guitars. It'll just be direct right into my interface through headphones or just through some monitors like I have here right now. So my wife and my daughter don't have to listen to a month and a half straight of just loud screaming guitars. Just a bit more of a clean guitar tone because that's what the Fender Princeton's going to do, is most of the clean tones. Also, my arm hurts today because I a Band-Aid right there. I got my flu shot. Go get your flu shot. This is a public service announcement. Please, get your flu shot. It's good for you. So I got the Iridium to do my amp sounds for both my Vox and my Marshall sounds. Also talk about cost. The pedal costs about $400, which is expensive, but the great thing is about Strymon pedals, they hold their value very well. Right now these are selling for $350 all day long on Reverb plus shipping. So basically I'm going to use this pedal, get all my guitar sounds I want. By the time I sell it and pay the fees for selling it, it'll cost me about $75 to do all my guitar sounds. $75 is like an hour in the studio. If you go to the studio for an hour for $75, you'll go, you set everything up, get your tones, and maybe get a backing track. You won't even hear it probably in the mix. Or this way, I'll get all my guitar tones. I can get my guitars. I can track my guitars whenever I want to. And it'll cost me basically $75 once I sell it. So let's go through these real quick. First, I'll play the round a little bit, which again is based on a Fender Deluxe, and I'm not going to be using it much because I'll have my Princeton. So here's a little bit what the round sounds like. If you look at the EQ, they're not quite flat. They're down a little bit how I like it. Also, some other knobs on here are going to be, you got your round, or you have your basic amp settings on here. You got your drive. You have your level, which is the level coming out of the pedal. Bass, middle, treble. Room. Room is basically just a reverb. It's not a big reverb. It makes it actually sounds like an amp in a room, which is kind of what you want. And then up here you got your round, chime, and punch. And each one has 3 different cabs. The top cab is your basic cab for all of them. So for like a round, it's going to be a 1x12, whatever cab they have. Chime's going to be a 2x12 with Anaco Blue speakers in it. And the top one on punch is going to be, I think, a 410, which is your standard punch Marshall cabinet. So let's start with the round a little bit here. Play a little guitar. So this is what it sounds like with really no pedals going. I have my pedal board through there too. But this is what it sounds like with really no pedals going. So it sounds like a nice Fender. But you know, for me, I'll throw some pedals on there. So with this. All right, if you want to see all the other settings and how it sounds, there's a bunch of videos do a lot better than I'm going to do. So I'm going to go over to the chime now, which is your Vox AC30. So a little Vox AC30 story for you. Years ago, I went to a used store and I bought myself a Fender Bass Breaker amp. It's a great sounding amp, but there's a problem with it. When I plugged into the effects loop on the back, the whole amp started making this terrible sound. And once I plugged into it once, it really didn't work right anymore. So I took the amp back. So I had 7 days to take it back for a full refund. So I got my refund, no problem. And when I got there, this guy just put out this brand new, or very new, Vox AC30, the CC2 model on the floor. And there was a guy at the stores, he was putting it out on consignment. And I went and looked at it, and I love the sound of a crank Fox. If you think it's a crank Fox, just think Beatles, think Queen, think U2. That's the sound of a crank Fox. So I went and looked at it, played through it for a minute. I'm like, yeah, this is what guitar amp's supposed to sound like. So it wasn't too much more than I just paid for my Fender bass breaker. So I know I paid the extra difference. Brought the amp home, put it in my basement, did some stretches because it's really heavy. So I went and played it, turned it up. I found I couldn't turn it up past 1, or it was far too loud to use. So I could be down here, I'd have it on 1, I have my effects, my pedal board through it. And the problem is at 1, no tube amp sounds good at 1, because tube amps start to sound good once you get the tubes warmed and put some signal through them. And at 1, even my Princeton doesn't sound good at 1. So one day, my wife and daughter, my daughter may have been born at this time, the house was empty, came downstairs, I'm like, I'm going to crank the amp and see how it sounds. So I came downstairs, I cranked up that Vox AC30 to 5. Went, strummed my chord, and it sounded phenomenal. And I thought the house was going to fall down. So I played guitar for maybe half an hour, couldn't hear for 2 days. And I was like, well, it sounds great, but I'm not going to be able to use it because for any practical purposes, I'll be able to crank it up, once every 2 months or something. So I took that back and ended up buying something else. Oh, PV Classic 20, which I then ended up selling and getting my Princeton for. But I do love the sound of a crank Vox, so let's see what that sounds like. Here's just a normal sounding. Here, this isn't crank. This is just kind of a little bit of signal in there. Oop, turn the guitar on. A little more reverb in there. All right, so the Vox is a great sound, but let's crank it up a little bit. Kind of show you that crank Vox sound. So I love that sound. But since you have a crank Vox sound, I have a Strat and I can pick my telly up. But I do an effects pedal, it gives me 8s. So let's have some fun. See if this is familiar. All right, there's a couple different sounds within there for different cabs. Just kind of show you real quick. This top cab, middle cab, that's a good sound. Bottom cab. All right, finally here we'll go over the Marshall, which is a Plexi Super Lead, which, think most rock guitar. Here's a Plexi Clean, which is a bad sound, but it's not Fender. But if you have a Plexi, you're not going to play it clean. You're going to crank it and make rock and roll. Throw some pedals in there, do a little more focus. Right all, that's a quick look at the Strymon Iridium, how I'm going to get a lot of my amp tones for the album. Next video I'm going to talk about is probably going to be the single for the album, which is a song called Something to Lose. I think the video after that I'm going to talk about budgeting and why I'm doing all this. So I actually have a plan. It's nice to have a plan. Normally I just have a whole list of things that I just kind of pick as I want to go. But I have to have a plan. Next one's going to be a single. Video after that, I talk about budgeting and reason I'm doing all this, which probably could have been the first one. But I want to do a couple videos before I got into that. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah.